I dragged myself home after a brutal day at work, only to find the house empty. "Lily," I called out as I climbed the stairs. "I'm back." "I'll be down in a sec, Spartan," she yelled from upstairs. It was a joke we'd had for years. We met at a costume party where I'd dressed as a Spartan. We'd nearly bumped into each other, and I'd apologized, but she'd cut me off, poking me in the chest and saying, "You're Spartan." I pointed back at her and said, "I'm Lily," which made her laugh. Turns out, her real name actually was Lily. From then on, we'd been Spartan and Lily. We'd been married for what I thought were 5 blissful years. I cracked open a beer, collapsed on the couch, and turned on the 6 o'clock news. The headlines had barely ended when Lily finally made her appearance downstairs. My jaw nearly hit the floor. She was wearing that little black dress of mine, the one I loved. It was short, just barely grazing her mid-thigh, and while the cleavage wasn't anything spectacular, it certainly wasn't modest. The backless design made it pretty obvious she wasn't wearing a bra, but even the way her breasts moved as she walked told me everything I needed to know. To top it off, she was wearing the necklace I'd gotten her for our anniversary just a month ago. I fumbled around for my phone, snapping a picture, even though I wasn't sure why. "Wow, didn't know we were dating," I said. "Let me freshen up and change clothes. By the way, where are we heading?" "We're not going anywhere," she replied. "James Hawthorne invited me to dinner and dancing tonight. I'll probably be late, so don't wait up for me." James Hawthorne. That name alone made my blood boil. He was a guy who'd been banned from all company events after his reputation went down the drain for messing around with too many married women. "He's not like that," Lily insisted. "He's just a jerk with a jealous husband who caused all the drama." "Well, there's one jealous husband right here, and I'm not about to let you date him," I said. "I don't belong to you." She shot me a look before heading for the door. "You may not belong to me, but when we exchanged vows, we committed to each other. That still means something to me. I thought it meant something to you, too." "Oh, don't be so old-fashioned," she sneered, her voice dripping with sarcasm. "It's the 21st century. No one believes in that stuff anymore. You should have told me earlier. We could have just gotten divorced and moved on." "Divorce?" I repeated, caught off guard. "What do you mean?" She laughed dismissively as she walked out. I grabbed an old bat from the closet just as the Lexus pulled up. "Here comes James," she called out. "Order yourself a pizza or something." I stepped outside, holding the bat loosely in my hand. "Lily!" I shouted as she turned. Without thinking, I ripped the dress off her, leaving her standing in just a tight black thong and heels. She froze for a second, then bolted back inside. I casually walked toward the Lexus, tapping the bat against my palm as Hawthorne sped off, tires screeching. I nodded at my neighbors, who were clearly enjoying the impromptu show, and headed back inside to return the bat to the closet. Grabbing another beer, since the first one was already warm, I slouched back on the couch, waiting for the inevitable storm. It didn't take long. Lily stormed downstairs, wearing only a robe, her face twisted in fury. Her rant was a jumble of anger and frustration, and honestly, I couldn't even keep track of half of it. The things she was saying? I didn't even know she knew half the words. I just sat there, letting her blow off steam. "What were you thinking?" I asked, genuinely bewildered. "What were you hoping for?" "I don't know," she admitted, throwing her hands up. "Our lives have just gotten so boring, so monotonous. We never have any fun anymore." "Well, why am I only hearing about this now?" I asked. "The last few times I tried to change things up, you were either too busy, uninterested, or you just thought it was gross. Even if you can justify cheating, why humiliate me like this?" "I didn't want to lie," she explained. "I thought if I told you, it wouldn't count as cheating." "That's the most ridiculous thing I've ever heard," I shot back. "Sleeping with someone else without my consent? That's definitely cheating." "Maybe you'd allow it," she said, looking at me with a hopeful glint in her eye. "You've really lost your mind," I said, feeling the rage bubbling up. "I need to get out of here before I do something we'll both regret." I grabbed the keys and bolted before she could even stand up. I did what any self-respecting man would do. I headed straight for my favorite bar to drown my sorrows. "What's wrong?" Daniel asked, sliding another bottle my way. "You look like you lost your best friend." "Maybe I did," I muttered. I came home to find Lily all dressed up, telling me she was going out with James Hawthorne from work. She told me not to wait up for her. Of course you told her no, Chris said. Of course I did, I replied, rolling my eyes. What kind of fool do you think I am? I nearly went off on him when he smirked and said, just messing with you, dude. So, what happened next? He asked. Well, she gave me the usual spiel about not owning her and how loyalty is outdated, I said, shaking my head. Guess you didn't buy it. Ding, 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 Chris said. You got it right. At that moment, Hawthorne's car pulled up, and Lily headed for the door. I grabbed a bat from the closet, walked outside, and ripped her dress right off her in the street. She froze for a moment, then realized all the neighbors were watching and scrambled back inside. I walked over to Hawthorne's car, still holding the bat, and watched as he sped away. Looks like a win for you, Chris said. Yeah, I muttered. Short-lived, though. Lily came downstairs again soon after, pouting like a bear with a sore head. As she calmed down, she started ranting about our sex life, claiming that if I gave her permission, it wouldn't be cheating. I didn't know what to say. I knew I needed to get out of there, so here I am, just cracking open a few more cold bottles. We clinked glasses and drank. After a couple more, I decided it was best to call it a night before I risked driving under the influence. Good night and good luck, Daniel, Chris said. Thanks, Chris. I think I'm going to need it, I replied. When I got home later that night, Lily was already in bed. I went through my usual routine, changed into my pajamas, and slid into bed, keeping my back turned to her. As I drifted off to sleep, I could have sworn I heard her softly crying, but I decided not to confront it. The next morning, Lily was up early making breakfast. Our meal was awkwardly quiet. After we finished cleaning up, she started in again. Daniel, why can't you see that things have changed? Nobody expects to stay with just one person forever anymore. Well, I don't think I'm the only one who feels that way, I answered. And as for being with just one person for life, neither of us was exactly a saint before we met. We both dated other people, remember? You know that's not what I mean, she shot back. We were just kids then, we didn't know anything. Now we're older, more experienced, with more to compare to. I don't need to compare anything, I said firmly. I did plenty of comparing before I asked you to marry me. I chose you because I knew you were the one I wanted to spend my life with. When you said yes, I thought you felt the same way. Did you lie to me? No, but what? She interrupted. Have you changed your mind? If you have, then maybe we should just get a divorce. I don't want a divorce, I muttered. Well, you can't have it both ways, she shot back. If you don't want a divorce, you'll need to forget about all this nonsense. Lily lowered her gaze, her face hard. I don't want a divorce, she whispered. Then it's decided, I said, though I wasn't entirely convinced. Despite Lily claiming that she was done with other men, I couldn't shake the feeling that she was lying. Every time she was late or didn't call when she said she would, I felt a tight knot in my stomach. The tension between us was thick, and it even started to affect our intimacy. Everything felt careful, cautious, and cold. Finally, I snapped. Lily, I want a divorce. She looked at me, stunned. But I thought we were fine. Really? I responded. Do you really think everything's fine? Do you honestly believe we're anywhere close to where we used to be when things were good? She dropped her gaze, shaking her head. Telling my parents was the hardest part. They just couldn't understand why we couldn't make it work. When my father-in-law called me one day, I showed him a photo of Lily, half-dressed, and that finally made him back off. We faced questions from the family, a lot of them. I tried to shield Lily from embarrassment by letting the wine flow, but in the end, I had to show everyone the photo and explain what she had been up to. Lily's family came down hard on her, and of course, she came to me looking for sympathy. Daniel, is there really nothing I can do to change your mind about the divorce? She asked, her voice desperate. I thought for a moment, putting my hand to my chin. Then I came up with an idea I was sure she wouldn't like. Okay, Lily, I won't stop the divorce, but I'll put it on hold for one condition. Her face lit up immediately. Anything, Daniel. Be careful when you say anything, I warned. It's a big deal. I'm not worried, she said with a confident smile. I'm sure you won't go crazy. So, what's the condition? I'll let you date other men as long as I can date other women. I was almost certain I saw a grin flash across her face before she quickly masked it with a sickly sweet smile. Of course, Daniel. That's fair. What a piece of work. I was pretty sure she hadn't expected me to find someone else. There's one more thing, I added. What? She asked, now clearly intrigued. You can't start dating until I've had a chance to find someone myself. She looked thrilled, probably because she assumed she already had someone in mind and was worried I might not find anyone. To give her a little push, I added, if I can't find a date within 2 weeks, you're free to do whatever you want. Her face lit up with the brightest smile I'd seen in weeks. She threw her arms around me and kissed me. That's great, Daniel. Thank you. You'll see, this will be just what our marriage needs. Yeah, I muttered under my breath. Maybe it'll fix it or maybe it'll just drag it down the drain. A few days later, Lily seemed caught off guard when I told her I had a date and suggested we go on a double date the next day. She probably thought I was bluffing, expecting her to be out on a date while I stayed home alone. What she didn't know was that I had already lined up a date of my own, hoping this would be the final straw that ended all the madness. On Monday, I took a long lunch to buy some new clothes, leaving them in my car. Then on Friday, I left work early to get my hair done, ensuring I was home before Lily. I snuck into the guest room, changed into my new outfit, and got ready in the shower when I heard the garage door open. I finished shaving, brushed my teeth, and went to the bedroom to complete my look. Lily was surprised when I emerged from the guest room, looking fresh with my new clothes and hairstyle, but she quickly regained her composure. James will pick me up at 6:30. Fine, I said. We have a reservation with Olivia at 7 o'clock. The table's in my name in case you get there before us. I walked out the door, feeling a little satisfaction at her confusion. What Lily didn't know was that we had a new hire at work, Sophia Garcia. Sophia was a stunning redhead who caught everyone's eye, and though she was completely professional, we had become casual friends. She would flirt with me from time to time, but I'd always politely show her my wedding ring. When I asked her out for drinks after work, she seemed intrigued. I arrived at the bar before she did, staring into my glass when she walked in. So, Daniel, what's got the last Boy Scout of America out of his shell? She asked with a smile. One glance at my forlorn expression quickly sobered her. Oh, Daniel, I'm so sorry, she said, her voice soft as she placed a warm hand on mine. I didn't mean to tease you. You look like you've lost your best friend. My eyes began to well up, and I turned away, trying to hold back the tears. Sophia put her arm around me, guiding me to a table. I took a sip of my drink while she patiently waited, giving me the space I needed to gather myself and find the courage to tell her everything. Well, she said after a while, there's only one thing we can do. We? I asked, raising an eyebrow. So we? I asked, raising an eyebrow. She gave me a serious look, nodding. Yes, I'll be your date. For the first time since Lily dropped that bombshell, I couldn't help but laugh. Why are you laughing? She asked, confused. I don't know, it's just I trailed off, still chuckling. Why me, though? You don't exactly date married men. Hell, you barely even flirt with single ones. If the guys at the office thought they had a shot with you, they'd be lining up out the door. I'm not just looking for a date, she replied, shaking her head. Like you said, I could date anyone I want, but I really like you. Maybe it's because you don't undress me with your eyes the way most guys do. Not that you don't notice. I mean, it would be weird if you didn't, but you treat me with respect when we talk. You actually listen to me. You support my ideas when others dismiss them just because they come from me. More importantly, I like you, and I'm pissed off at your wife for treating you the way she has. So, are we on a date or not? She asked, looking at me, her tone a little more challenging. I had to admit, I wasn't naive, but I wasn't dumb either. You're in, I said, finishing my drink and standing up. I walked Sophia to her car, and she gave me her number before we shared a quick, friendly hug. She got into her car, and I couldn't shake the feeling that my life was about to get a lot more interesting. When I pulled up to Sophia's place, I barely had time to open her door before she was there, standing beside me. She was a bit taller than Lily, but still shorter than me. Her emerald green dress clung to her curves, the slit running up the side, showing off her toned thigh. Her wavy red hair flowed down her back, and the dress revealed more cleavage than I'd ever seen from Lily. As I helped her into the car, she nearly slipped, giving me a brief but tantalizing glimpse of her smooth, creamy thigh before she adjusted her dress, flashing me a bright, confident smile. "We'll have plenty of time for that later," she said, her voice smooth and teasing. I had to collect myself before driving, still a little awkward from her laughter and touch. And as if that wasn't enough, she began rubbing my thigh. It took all my willpower to focus on the road and not what was happening right next to me. Luckily, we arrived at the restaurant before things got too out of hand, and I managed to regain my composure. When we walked inside, Lily and James were already there. I'd seen James a few times before, but his presence that night didn't really stand out to me. Lily, on the other hand, was furious. I don't think I've ever seen her that worked up. James didn't even stand up, so I didn't bother offering my hand. Instead, I simply nodded at Lily and helped Sophia into her seat. Lily was clearly stunned to see me with such a beautiful date. I could tell she wanted to say something snide, but she must have thought better of it. James, on the other hand, couldn't keep his eyes off Sophia's cleavage. Lily had to elbow him to get him to stop staring. The dinner started off awkwardly, but eventually it felt just like any other night out with two couples, even if they weren't exactly normal couples. After dinner, we went to a club to have drinks and dance. The first few songs were uneventful, but during the slower ones, Sophia pressed herself against me, and I could feel Lily's glare burning through me. Lily, meanwhile, was practically grinding on James, trying to make a scene. She was drawing a lot of attention, but seemed oblivious to it all. That is, until James's hand slipped under her dress and started caressing her breasts. I felt embarrassed for both of them, and I quickly pulled Sophia away to our table. We watched Lily and James continue their little show until the manager finally approached them and told them they had to leave. Lily bolted to the table, tears in her eyes, grabbed her coat, and stormed out, with James following close behind. "Well, you certainly know how to have a good time with a girl," Sophia said, giggling. I couldn't help but laugh too, and we returned to the dance floor after that. When we were ready to leave, I walked up to the manager, trying to keep it low-key. "I'd like to apologize for our companions," I said. "Don't worry about it," he replied. "No complaints here. I understand. Please come again." I took Sophia back to her apartment and walked her to the door. As I leaned in for a quick, friendly kiss goodnight, she surprised me by pulling me close and kissing me passionately. "Would you like to come in for a nightcap?" she asked, her eyes sparkling with a mix of invitation and something more. I could tell by the glint in her eye that she had more in mind than just a drink. But who was I to argue? She guided me to the sofa, sitting down beside me, her presence filling the space between us. Her dress, with a subtle slit on the side, caught the light as she adjusted herself, looking at me with a confident smile. With a slow, deliberate motion, she relaxed back, her posture calm but sure, and we sat there for a moment, exchanging a quiet, knowing glance. The tension between us was palpable, but it wasn't about the physical. It was something unspoken, something deeper. Before I even realized it, she slid down onto the floor and started unbuttoning my trousers, moving slowly, almost teasing me. I struggled to keep my composure. When she finally settled back on me, I could feel her warmth pressing against me, and I couldn't help but think about how different this felt compared to Lily. Lily always claimed that the positions Sophia was offering were humiliating. But Sophia didn't think that way. After a while, I rolled over beside her, and she nestled against me, resting her head on my shoulder as we lay there. A sudden thought hit me. "Sophia," I said, feeling a bit nervous. "I forgot to use a condom." "It's okay," she reassured me, sensing my anxiety. "I'm on the pill." I cupped her chin, lifting her face to mine, and kissed her softly. Our tongues met in a gentle dance, and I lost track of time as we made love. It felt like only moments passed before we both drifted into a blissful sleep. Lying there, I couldn't help but reflect on Lily's claim that our relationship had become boring. If anything, my night with Sophia had shown me that the problem wasn't with me. The next morning, we went through our usual morning routine, showering separately while Sophia wrapped up. I made breakfast, and when she saw what I had prepared, she grinned. "Well, it looks like you've got more than one talent." "I could get used to this," she added with a teasing smile. As we sat down to eat, I felt a mix of emotions. "Sophia, I really like you. Last night was the most alive I've felt in a long time." but I need to figure things out with my marriage first. Even if we end up divorced, I'm not sure I'll be ready for something serious right away." She looked at me with understanding. "Don't worry, Daniel," she said gently. "I like you too, and if things work out between us, I can definitely see us being together. But you're right. First, you need to sort things out with Lily." After breakfast, we spent some time chatting about things that didn't matter much, but it helped clear my head. I knew I had to go back home and try to make sense of everything with Lily. When I walked in, I found Lily sitting at the kitchen table, her eyes puffy from crying. Seeing my more relaxed expression seemed to make things worse for her. She broke down into tears again. I took a cup of coffee and sat down across from her. "So, how was your night with James?" I asked, trying to keep my voice steady. "Oh, Daniel," she sobbed. "It was awful. I couldn't stop thinking about you and Sophia. She's so perfect, and I feel like I can't compete with her." "You wouldn't have to worry about competition if you hadn't started this whole mess," I said quietly, my voice calm but firm. Lily didn't meet my eyes, but she nodded, as if she knew I was right. "I think you'd feel less regret if it was just me and James alone at home," I added, my tone softer now. She looked up at me, her eyes filled with tears. She nodded again, slowly. "I don't know what to do anymore. Part of me wants to just start over, maybe with someone else. But then I look at you, and I see the man I married, the one I loved. I don't see someone evil, just someone who made a mistake." Her vulnerability was clear, and I could see the hope in her eyes. "I'm going to change and step out for a while," I said, needing a break. "When I come back, we'll talk again." "Please don't make me leave, Daniel," she pleaded, her voice trembling. "How can we fix this if we're apart? I need you now more than ever." "You don't get it," I said, my frustration starting to show. "It's not just about us getting back together. Maybe you should have thought about how much you needed me before you decided to do this." I turned and walked upstairs, leaving Lily sitting at the table. When I came back down, she was still there, watching me, her eyes full of hope. I shook my head sadly and walked out of the house, determined to make her feel the weight of what we were facing. I walked down to the Charles River, needing to clear my head. I sat on a bench, watching the rowers and the sailboats. I felt a deep sadness, wondering if I'd ever have the family I'd imagined with Lily. I wasn't sure how long I sat there, but as the sun began to set, I took a deep breath and slowly made my way back home. When I entered the house, Lily was still at the table, watching me closely. I simply shook my head and went up to my room, locking the door behind me. I lay on the bed, fully dressed, covering my eyes with my hand. I don't know how long I stayed there before I heard a soft knock on the door and a quiet voice. "Daniel." I didn't respond, and after another soft knock, I heard her footsteps retreating to the guest room. Once I was sure she had gone to bed, I quickly showered, hoping it would calm my mind. But sleep was restless. The next morning, I went downstairs to find Lily had made breakfast. Despite everything, I was surprisingly hungry, though Lily barely touched her food. "Daniel," she said, her voice quiet and hesitant. "Do you think we could try seeing a psychologist?" I thought about it for a moment. I wasn't sure how counseling worked, and part of me feared they would try to make me see things from Lily's perspective. But I wasn't ready to give up. My time with Sophia had made it clear that our relationship had grown stale. Did I really want to go back to that? Even with my anger at Lily for how she'd handled everything, I still had love for her. I wasn't ready to walk away without trying. "Okay, Lily, here's the deal," I said, my voice firm. She almost jumped out of her chair. "I don't want a counselor whose goal is just to save our marriage. Whether it can be saved or not isn't the point. I won't tolerate any hidden agendas." I could see the disappointment on her face, as if she had hoped for someone who would tell us both that everything could be fixed. But she agreed. The consultation turned out to be surprisingly productive. Lily had to face how her refusal to communicate with me was affecting our relationship, and I realized I needed to be more assertive. We talked about what we wanted from each other, and it wasn't just about sex. It was about connection. Despite everything, Lily couldn't seem to let go of her insecurities about Sophia. Even after I reassured her that although I had some feelings for Sophia, I wasn't in love with her, and that it was a response to the situation, Lily didn't fully accept it. Eventually, we both came to the painful conclusion that we needed to part ways. The divorce was finalized, and I took time to reflect on my life. I didn't immediately reach out to Sophia. Instead, I booked a stay at a bed and breakfast on the Mina coast. The weather was unpredictable, and so was my mood, but I needed time to think and relax. When I returned, I called Sophia. We went to dinner, and though we ended up together afterward, it felt more like a step forward in healing than anything else. The connection was there, but it wasn't just about passion. It was about comfort and finding a new direction. The next morning, as we lay in bed, Sophia asked, "Penny for your thoughts, Daniel?" I thought for a moment before responding. I was just thinking how easy it would be to ask you to stay with me, to make this all permanent. But I know that the easy way isn't always the best. She smiled slyly, teasing, "Get your mind out of the gutter." "I don't just mean that. I really like you," she continued, her tone shifting, "and I know I could fall for you. But with my divorce still fresh, I think it might be unfair to both of us if we rush into anything. I think we should see other people for a while still seeing each other. I can't promise how long this will last, and I won't ask you to wait for me." I wanted to argue, but deep down, I knew she was right. We got up, went about our usual routines, showered separately, and had a quiet breakfast together. There was a tension in the air, and although I was tempted to disregard our agreement and pursue something more with Sophia, I stayed resolute. I think she might have been tempted too. After we cleaned up, she walked me to the door, and we hugged. "I think this is goodbye," she whispered, tears in her eyes. "No, I don't agree," I said, pulling back to look at her. "Let's meet for dinner in 2 weeks, just to check in on how things are going." She nodded slowly, kissing me on the cheek and guiding me out the door. As the door clicked shut behind me, it felt final, like a prison door locking behind me. I wasn't sure if I'd just made the biggest mistake of my life. I spent the rest of the week questioning everything. On Friday, I decided to join some friends for dinner and drinks to get my mind off things. We were sitting in a corner booth when, out of the corner of my eye, I saw her, Sophia, walking in with a tall, handsome guy. Who was I kidding? Of course, he was tall and handsome. I was torn between going over to say hello or respecting our agreement. Eventually, I decided against it. I was disappointed in how quickly she seemed to have moved on. Part of me wanted to be angry, but I knew I was no better. I waited until she went to the restroom before I left some cash on the table and quietly said my goodbyes to my friends. I guess you could call me a coward. I was angry at Sophia for not waiting longer before dating again, but I was angrier with myself. I'd made a choice. We'd agreed to see other people, and here I was, already floundering. It was clear to me now. I needed to get back into the dating scene. I was still a good catch, and I wasn't going to waste any more time. I quickly arranged a date for the following Friday with someone new, Rachel Stevens. She worked as a secretary for one of my clients, and we'd had a few flirtatious exchanges in the past. When I told her about my divorce, she didn't hesitate. Rachel had always seemed attractive in a professional sense, but when she opened the door for our date, I was surprised by how stunning she looked. "I think I'm pretty well prepared," she said with a teasing grin. "That's an understatement," I replied, noticing how effortlessly she had put herself together. I helped her with her coat, and we went out. Dinner was filled with the usual first-date conversation, lighthearted at first, but we quickly ended up discussing my divorce. Rachel seemed genuinely shocked by Lily's actions. Over coffee and dessert, I decided to be upfront with her. "Rachel, I don't want to deceive you," I said. "Before my divorce was finalized, I was involved with someone. And now, after it's over, things with her have become more serious. But we both agreed to see other people for a while before rushing into anything. I don't want you to think I'm just using you as a rebound," I added. "I'm open to whatever happens, but I'm not looking for a commitment right now." Her response was reassuring. "Daniel, this is just our first date. I'm not expecting anything heavy. I appreciate your honesty. Let's just see where it goes." We spent the rest of the evening getting to know each other better, and the night ended with a warm kiss and plans for the following Saturday. Meanwhile, I had dinner planned with Sophia, and I wasn't sure how it would go. When she arrived, she was as beautiful as ever. During dinner, she suddenly became serious. "You know I saw you, right?" she asked after our orders had been placed. I raised an eyebrow, curious. "I saw you with your friends the other night," she continued. "I was going to come over and say hello, but when I came out of the restroom, you were already gone. I felt a little embarrassed." I know we agreed to see other people, but seeing you with someone else so soon made me jealous. It's silly, I know, Daniel. You had no reason to be jealous, I said softly. Jack is an old friend I hadn't seen in a while. When he called, I took the opportunity to have dinner with him. It wasn't anything significant. No need to apologize if it upset me. It was all in my head. Sophia smiled faintly, but then her expression shifted, her eyebrows raised. Should I be feeling jealous? She teased. Oh, I wouldn't worry about that, I replied. We've got another date planned for tomorrow night. We both agreed there's no commitment here. Just two people enjoying each other's company. That's nice, she said, her smile tinged with something a little wistful. You deserve to have a good time. We didn't dwell on it for long, as our dinners arrived and we shifted our conversation to lighter topics. Later, I opened the car door for her. Would you like to go dancing? I asked. No, she replied softly. I think it would be better if you just took me home. The drive was quiet. She stared out the window, lost in thought. We reached her door, shared a kiss that was perhaps a bit more intense than we'd intended, and then gently parted. Please stay in touch, Daniel, she said, her voice soft. I will, I assured her. Good night, Sophia, I said quickly, retreating to my car before she could see the conflicted look in my eyes. My date with Rachel went well. Our goodbye kiss was more passionate than I expected, and though we did some light petting, we both agreed to stop before it went any further. I spoke with Sophia every week or so, but we never actually met up again. I'm not sure if we were avoiding each other subconsciously, or if it was just fate. I saw Rachel a few more times. We had fun, but there was no real spark. After our third night together, Rachel dropped a bombshell. Daniel, I think this should be the last time, she said. What? I thought everything was fine. Well, maybe it was 2 days ago, she replied, sounding confused. Daniel, when we first started, we agreed there'd be no strings attached. I told you up front that I wasn't looking for anything serious, and back then, I didn't have any feelings for you. But now, things are different. I'm starting to develop feelings. She paused, taking a breath. If we keep going down this road, I think we might end up somewhere I'm not ready for. I'd rather cut it off now, before it gets any deeper and causes more hurt later on. I hope that makes sense. It hurt, but in a strange way, I understood. It didn't make it any easier, but I knew I'd move on. I stood up, kissed her forehead, and headed for the door. Good night, Rachel. Goodbye, Daniel, she replied. Her sad smile and teary eyes spoke volumes. As I closed the door behind me, I thought about what to do next. I dated a few women, mostly one-night stands, and a couple of brief relationships, but none of it went anywhere. After a while, I figured out what I was really missing and decided it was time to make a call. Hello, it's Daniel, I said, realizing only after I spoke that she could see my caller ID. Sophia, I'm not sure where you are right now, but I'm done with the casual stuff. I'm ready to settle down if you're willing. I want to come home. There was a long pause on the other end, and I felt a pang of worry. Maybe I'd miss my chance. How soon can you come? She asked. Lily had stayed in town, living quietly with her cats, and wasn't exactly on the lookout for work in a Mexican brothel. I wasn't serious about her, but I still saw Rachel a few more times. We ended up in bed again, but the chemistry just wasn't there. After the third time, Rachel dropped the same bombshell again. Daniel, I think this should be the last time. What? I thought we were okay. I protested. Maybe too okay, she said, confusing me even more. Daniel, we agreed there'd be no commitment. At the start, I didn't have any feelings, but now they're developing. If we keep this up, we might end up somewhere I'm not ready for. I'd rather end things now, before things get too deep and painful later. I hope this makes sense. It did in a strange way. It stung, but I knew I'd move on. I dressed, kissed her forehead, and went for the door. Good night, Rachel. Goodbye, Daniel. She said it with that sad smile and those teary eyes. I closed the door, wondering what to do next. I had some short relationships, but none of them turned serious. Eventually, I realized what was truly missing and picked up the phone. Hello, it's Daniel, I said, completely forgetting she could see my caller ID. Sophia, I'm done with the casual stuff. I've had more ups and downs than a pinball machine, and I'm ready for something more serious. If you're still open to it, I want to come home. Another pause, and I started to fear I'd lost my chance. How soon can you come? She asked. Lily hadn't left town in disgrace. She lived quietly with her cats, not seeking work anywhere unsavory. Though I wasn't particularly interested, I'd heard from mutual friends that she was dating, though no one serious seemed to be involved. Safiel had even suggested inviting Lily to our wedding. I wasn't sure about it, but I didn't protest. Lily declined the invitation, but sent a lovely gift. I was surprised when Safiel started a casual friendship with Lily. They met for coffee, went shopping together, things I didn't think much of, even though it felt a little odd. About 6 months after we got married, I came home one night to find Safiel all dressed up, ready to go out. Oh, here we go again, I thought, but thankfully, my worries were misplaced. Go change, Safiel said. We're meeting Lily at Olivia's for dinner. I know you two have gotten pretty close, but don't you think this is a bit much? I asked. Don't worry, dear. There's a method to my madness, she replied. I knew better than to argue when she had her mind made up, so I shrugged and went to change. When we arrived, Lily was already there, and the atmosphere was as awkward as you could imagine. Safiel and Lily exchanged cheek kisses, and I just stood there, feeling like an outsider. Neither of us seemed to know what to do, but Lily broke the silence. Daniel, good to see you. You look great. Thanks, Lily. You look good, too. Thankfully, we were soon seated at our table. Safiel stopped to chat with the man at the counter, and I turned to her when she returned. What's all this about? I asked. Don't worry about it, honey, she said with a smile. Every husband knows that when his wife says nothing, it usually means something, and you should be worried. But there was nothing I could do except go along with it and hope for the best. Lily sat to my right, Safiel opposite her. Before we could even order drinks, the owner came over with Jack. Safiel greeted him warmly, gave him a hug, and seated him to my left, directly across from Lily. It quickly became clear that Safiel had a plan in mind, and my worst fears didn't seem to be coming true. Still, the evening could go south in a hurry. But thankfully, Lily and Jack hit it off, and the conversation flowed easily throughout dinner. By the end of the night, it felt like we were all just old friends. When it was time to leave, Jack and I split the bill, and as Safiel and I were heading out, Lily and Jack decided to stay and have a drink at the bar. Safiel was so confident, but I couldn't bring myself to be angry. Even though it might not last, they clearly had a good start. We kept things cordial with Lily and Jack, though we didn't see them often as a couple. When we did meet, it was usually in group settings. Their relationship seemed stable, and Lily no longer seemed to need to shake things up. We wished them the best, and Safiel and I couldn't have been happier. Though I'll admit, the baby's kicks at night certainly kept her awake.